dive right into Infectious Grooves. How you guys reactivated?
So every once in a while, lead singer Mike Muir, who actually, as most people know, Mike Muir is the founder and leader of iconic band Suicidal Tendencies. He will reach out and see if there's the possibility that we can do a show or two. Usually it's a one-off, and believe it or not, with Infectious Grooves, occasionally we get offers. Most of the time, it doesn't work out because I'm on tour. I'm busy. I'm out with Metallica and doing my thing. And it just so happened that we had some time off from Metallica, and I investigated to see if this was a possibility. Mike had an opportunity for Infectious Grooves to go back to Australia after 30 years, and I love Australia, and it just happened to work out, and we went over there in a very short amount of time, played about 5 shows in 8 days, and had a blast. The jet lag was pretty insane, but we pulled it off, and it was a lot of fun. It's a strange thing because obviously, for those that don't know, Infectious Grooves was a band that had 3 albums in my years, at least, on Sony, which then was called Epic Records. And this would have been in the 90s. And, we were always sort of doing whatever we could when we could, because Suicidal Tendencies was actually the main attraction. And it was really an underground band, but we had a following, and that following is stuck around, and developed. And there's been, energy that sometimes is just below the radar, but it's pretty powerful. And that happens sometimes with musicians, as people sort of connect with that musician and what they had done in their prior years, and maybe learn about the music and become fans. It's just nice to be able to reconnect with that style of music. That type of bass playing is very different than what I do with Metallica. It's a challenge. So for me, it's nice to keep myself challenged and also try to win over an audience, because most of those people weren't even alive when we played. So, especially on the other side of the world in Australia.
How would you even characterize the style of music? Because it kind of is like a jazzy, funked up, hardcore metal band. I don't know how to describe it outside of that.
Yeah, it was initially when I joined Suicidal Tendencies in 1989. I had an idea to bring this hybrid of music that was a cross between Slayer, ska music, punk, of course, with the connection to Suicidal Tendencies, but also really hard funk, but funk rock. So that would have been more rooted in like sort of James Brown, Parliament Funkadelic, taking all those ingredients and mixing it into a pot where there were no rules. And that's what we did. Now, at the time, I didn't know I'd be doing it with Mike Muir. I thought there were some other people in that tribe that I would be doing this with, but he ended up being a really big fan of the bass, and he got us a one-off deal with Epic Records at the time, and it was supposed to be an EP. We ended up making an LP with very little money, and we had guests like Stephen Perkins, who was with Jane's Addiction at the height. This was like Ritual de lo Habitual, Nothing Shocking era. And he was about 24 years old and killing it. And so we had him on board at that time. Dave Kushner was in a band called the Electric Love Hogs. He actually is in the touring band right now, but he connected us with Stephen Perkins, but he also played on the first album. He played on a song called Punk It Up. So we just had, Adam Siegel from Excel. We had various individuals contribute. Mark Dodson, who's a really incredible producer. He had produced Lights, Camera, Evolution, How Will I Laugh, which were Suicidal Tendency records, but he also produced some Anthrax records, as well as Metal Church, worked with Judas Priest. He was our producer and worked for basically nothing. So we ended up in a studio called Devonshire in LA, and Ozzy Ozzy was recording the No More Tears album at the same time. So we became like a fraternity with Ozzy. You know, we were at the same studio every day for like a month, and he ended up, they couldn't find him half the time, and he'd end up in our studio hanging out with us. And that's how we ended up recording Therapy with him, the song. And he would lose his minders in the studio, and he'd hide in our studio, and he'd want to hear the song, and he'd start doing this dance, you know, play the song. Can you play that song? You know, and then he'd start doing this thing with his, you know, and this whole thing and side angle and
What? That is
and
not the
yeah,
Ozzy dance we're used to.
no, it was insane. He was out of his mind in the most beautiful way possible. It was a dream come true for me, and that whole experience. And then he ended up taking Infectious Grooves on the Theater of Madness tour, and we actually played a couple shows at the Warfield back then. And I remember Jack Osborne and Kelly, you know, all the kids were super young, running around backstage, like 2 years old. I mean, this is, you know, way back in the day. And actually, there were a couple of members that were a part of the recording team that were the musicians that were from the Bay Area. A guitarist, incredible guitarist named Phil Kettner from the band Law's Rocket, as some people may know. And then there was another really funky guitar player who unfortunately is no longer with us, but Chris Gators, and he was kind of a mentor, guitarist, multi-instrumentalist, bass player, played with Lenny Kravitz. And he was also on the album. So we had a lot of our friends on that first record. It was a lot of fun. Definitely, though, a couple key players coming out of the Bay Area.
It seems like the distance between Los Angeles and San Francisco was a lot shorter back then. I don't know why, but it felt like back then you could just hop in the car and it would take a tank of gas in 5 hours and you would go from one to the other. And there was a lot of back and forth. And nowadays it's like everybody's too busy. LA is a world away now.
Right. Interesting thing back then was, and this happened a lot with the skateboarders too. As you know, nowadays it's back again. Skate industry is red hot, but you know, a band like Infectious Grooves was embraced by a lot of the skaters and the artists, the graffiti artists coming out of California, also the East Coast. So a lot of the skaters from San Francisco ended up in, of all places, Venice Beach. And some of the musicians ended up in Venice Beach. And that's how we ended up working with Chris Gators and Phil Kettner, because they ended up in Venice. And that was an interesting thing too with the skaters, because a lot of skaters from Venice would end up staying with skaters when they went up to the Bay Area to skate and compete. They would stay at the skaters up in NorCal as well. Like a lot of these skaters like Tommy Guerrero, excuse me, and Cab was up there. You know, he's down in, I think, San Diego now, but you know, it's just to name a few. I mean, there's way more. I'll go to the skate park in Pacifica and I'll have guys there that are working, you know, cleaning up the park or doing the, you know, the kind of gardening to maintain the park up there in Pacifica. And they're like, hey, RT, man, it's, you know, it's so-and-so from Venice, and, you know, what's up? So it's like kind of like this weird faction of
It's an exchange program.
Yeah, it's these transplants that have ended up in the Bay Area. And I'll be like, I remember my son's band Otto was playing at the over there at Bottle Rock Festival a few years ago. And there's a guy, he's one of the stagehands, and he just wants to talk about like the old days and, you know, Jay Adams and Tony Alva. He's, you know, obviously he moved and relocated to the Bay Area, but it's just like there's a lot of people are proud to have that connection back in the day. A lot of these folks have moved up north. Can't tell you how many people I've met through the skate industry and through the punk music scene that have ended up in the Bay Area and vice versa. And Infectious Grooves was always rooted with the snowboarders and the surfers and the skaters. And, you know, we played more than our fair shows up north back in the 90s and had a lot of community up there. So in a way, it's fitting to finish out this short kind of tour run in Berkeley. And we have a lot of friends coming out from, you know, the East Bay, and also even from LA driving up for the show. So it's really like a party. I mean, it's what it's going to be like.
It's last show of the tour, right?
Yeah, it's
So
funny. It's like an 8-show tour. It's like
anything goes.
anything goes. But
Nobody has to work tomorrow.
yeah. So we're excited about what we did in a way, because of the genre or the style or the recipe. I feel coming from Metallica and having that incredible support from the Metallica fans, especially on the big stage right now during the 72 Seasons tour, all of a sudden here I am in a club, it would have been Australia, but you feel, or I feel like, okay, I'm going to have to win these fans over because they've never seen this group, and maybe some of them aren't so familiar with this music, and it's a different beast. But for me, it's beautiful, because by the end of the show, it's like they're sort of engaged in what they just experienced, and allowing me to express myself as a bass player in a slightly different way has really resonated. So it's a part of the journey, and at this age for me to be able to still have those kind of challenges is always great. I felt like this last few weeks was a blur, because as you know, with Metallica, we just played in Washington, D.C. for, Elton John and Bernie Taupin. And that, I got to tell you, that was one of the scariest moments
The
for
people
me.
in that audience where there was a lot
It's
of just high profile people, plus a lot of people showing up for an evening event.
Well, it was insane, because I'm looking in the front row and I see Elton and Bernie, and I see Joni Mitchell, who I love. Joni, she's one of my favorites of all time. And I know her from the Jaco Pastorius film, and I hadn't seen her in a while. So to see her sitting in the front row, and then, you've got Brandy Carlisle and Garth Brooks, all these incredible musicians. And then I look beyond them and I see all these politicians that I've seen on TV. And I'm like, I don't even want to look at the audience, because I'm so nervous. And
it's like all these great musicians and then a whole bunch of narcs.
Yeah. It's like busted. So it was a challenge. But
I heard you guys had to. Also, I heard you guys had to open the show, because in the runtime, when you watched it on PBS, you guys were kind of in the middle of the show, but for the actual taping, you guys had to start that audience cold, right?
We had to start the audience cold, and then the kind of preliminary announcement going into the show, into the telecast, was very long, and I mean 10 minutes long, and with a click track going into your ear monitors and somebody talking before the actual official announcement, it was kind of stressful. So you're sitting there and you're hearing this guy go, "So welcome to the show tonight, and everybody just want you to know the celebration," and it's like click, 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 and and that's that will get us into the song, and
it's not the best vibe.
Yeah, so so your heart starts to race, and you're like, "Come on!" And you just want to get up and play, and for me, I know the other guys were feeling the same way, but for me, the way I'm wired is, when I'm ready to go, I'm ready to go. So I start putting my ear to the bass, to the neck, so I could hear the intro. Okay, yeah, the intro goes like this. Okay, and then I go here, and I'm actually visualizing the song arrangement for Funeral for a Friend, Love Lies Bleeding, what we actually put together. And in fact, 2 days before, I didn't want to hear any other songs. I said, nobody play me anything. I just want to hear this song that we're going to cover for Elton. Nothing else. Nobody call me. Nobody text me. I don't want to hear anything until I hit the last note of that performance. So it was that intense for me personally. Kirk started playing some 70s retro funk song, a minute before we're going on. And we're kind of getting in our huddle. I said, "Kirk, please stop." It's like, I can't hear Scorpio.
He's got that same nervous energy, just in a different
because he's
vibe.
got his guitar on, he's strapped on, he's smiling, and he's jamming this song that has nothing to do with what we're going to play. And I go, Kirk, please don't play that. I said, unless you're going to play Love Lies Bleeding, don't play anything. And James was like, yeah, please stop. So, again, it's what happens sometimes. We're all human. We get nervous. But I got to say, I think we can all pretty much, say the same thing here. Is that felt really good in the end. And I think that was probably the best we played it. It was a beautiful moment to see Elton and Bernie up on their feet, hands in the air. And let's just say we made it very difficult for the other bands and performers to come out and do what they do. And that's how I like it, keep them on their toes, especially the legends.
You guys definitely nailed it in a room full of people that had no idea what you were going to do.
Yeah, it's so funny because I had like Mike Inez before the show. Yeah, I've known Mike forever. And he's like, bro, you got to play through my amp, man. You got to play through my Ampeg. And I'm like, dude, just leave me alone. But Suze, you got to play through my, dude, I got 6 of those at home. I don't need to play through your Ampeg. It's like, leave me alone. You got to get up there and play with Elton. Worry about your songs. Don't worry about mine. So it's like, it's kind of like a dream, like
yeah.
this weird dream.
Well, and you want your comfies all around you, just all my stuff, my little zone, my little sphere of let me do this.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I was working at a record store in 91, early 90s when you guys came out with Infectious Grooves. And it was kind of like nobody knew what to make of the band. It was like kind of billed as a Suicidal Tendencies side project, which wasn't unfair. But the music comparison was way out in left field. And I kind of always saw the band as being like coming from Suicidal Tendencies. So I just kind of thought that when I saw Metallica in Phoenix and then flew back for the makeup date after James got sick, that when Suicidal Tendencies opened and you played with them, that's when I thought this Infectious idea came around. But was it in the works before that?
Yes. Infectious, again, was an experiment before that. And we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't really know what we were doing. We just wanted to try something different. And the label, for what it's worth, they were trying to appease Mike at the time and treated it like a solo album of his. And then it ended up becoming its own little beast, having musicians that were prominently featured in other bands. And then suddenly we're all in this together and we're opening for Ozzy, and we're literally like on a sold out tour in small venues. And if we gave ourselves too much time, the crowd would start chanting, Ozzy. And I remember in Austin, Texas, the balcony was shaking. I mean, the building was shaking. It was really scary and humbling. But I think sometimes that's important, that was happening. But then by the end of the show, we would win them over. And hey, it's like challenge is important. Every once in a while, you got to kind of reconnect with that for yourself. I reconnected with that when I was working with, Black Label Society, Jerry Cantrell. I had been touring with Ozzy pretty comfortably. And just before Metallica auditions, I was like, you know what? I got to get back to the clubs. I got to get back to, just ground myself. And I have to earn Metallica, and what does that mean? Well, to me at the time, it meant reconnecting with the roots, reconnecting with sort of that punk element. And, if I'm going to be the bass player of Metallica, I got to get back into this mindset and just earn my place in that journey to audition. So that's just how I've always been wired. This situation here now is just more of a celebration, but at the same time, we're talking 30 years. So people would not have seen it. And so it's a new brand of music to a lot of people. And I know people will go online and they'll hear the songs but there's something about playing something live and the energy of the room, and to see people grooving and moshing and dancing. I mean, down in Orange County, we did a couple shows at the Garden Amphitheater. And it was kind of surreal because at one moment you're seeing a guy with a bloody face who just got in a fight, and you're seeing a radical mosh pit, but then you're seeing everybody kind of grooving and dancing. So it was like this environment that I'm just not used to seeing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
People like to pin us up with sort of the Chili Peppers, and who are obviously amazing, and Mr. Bungle, who are, you know, one of my favorite alternative bands. They're my friends and everything, you know, but we were different. And it's great because we'll all say we were different, and we were. And it was just a different recipe that we had. I'm not saying it was better or worse, but it's exciting to challenge yourselves and just see where it goes and have fun with it after this amount of time, and reconnect with old friends. I got to say this. I'm up on stage, I'm playing, and I'm looking over to my left at Dean Pleasance, who happens to be the guitar player for Suicidal Tendencies, but he came up in the R&B ranks as a session guitar player in that genre, and kind of reconfigured his technique and a lot of stuff for metal, thrash, punk. But he came out of the funk school. And so all of a sudden I'm turning, I'm looking at this guy, and he's throwing these funky, you know, I mean, he's just a master of that. And
The
I'm
funk
a fan.
face.
And I'm a fan, right? I'm like looking at this dude going, damn, dude. I'm like, I don't know whether to like celebrate the audience and being a performer, or celebrate this guy next to me, because it's like, I just love what he does, you know?
It's
And
celebration all around.
in his swagger. So I'm just kind of, you know, looking at, at Dave Kushner, and who's a great friend of mine, and, you know, and I'm looking at Crazy Mike coming through, and I just like, you know, and then Jay in the back holding it down.
Well, let's talk about Jay. How did Jay come about?
Well, I didn't know Jay. Mike had known Jay and met Jay a few times, and he was always super cool, and he wanted to connect with Jay. And Brooks Wackerman from Avenged Sevenfold had been our drummer since he was 15. I believe Brooks is now like above 40 with 2 teenage kids and a wife. So at the time he was 15, but he was unavailable during the dates that we had available. But Jay was available, and you know, Mike reached out, and he offered to play the dates and the shows, and kind of the rest is history. And it's a lot of fun playing with Jay. Again, I didn't know him. I hadn't met him before. I can honestly say if he didn't have the mask on and he walked by me, I wouldn't have known who he was. But you know, it's a joy to play with him, and he's got a lot of energy. It's super fun. So it's been great having him on board for this journey. And yeah. But yeah, Brooks was 15 when he first recorded the Groove Family Psycho record. Before Brooks, it was Josh Freese, who is now the drummer of the Foo Fighters, and he played on Sarsippius's Ark. And before Josh Freese, it was Stephen Perkins from Jane's Addiction, and then a drummer by the name of Scott Crego, who plays in the Eagles now. So we've always had this kind of star-studded drummer's position. And that's why drummers want to play in Infectious Grooves, because they can go crazy and really spread their wings. So we've always had incredible drummers for that particular, you know, band or style of music when we could.
It's been something that you've kind of shepherded them through as the other half of the rhythm section?
Yeah, I definitely have. What we did back in the day was we would write like 4 songs in one setting down here in LA at Mate's studio. Mate's is a amazing rehearsal studio. I mean, everyone from Guns N' Roses, Alice in Chains, every band, even Bowie was rehearsing there. Everybody's gone through Mate's at some point or sometime or another. It's still there. We still rehearse there. Janes wrote their Ritual de l'Habitual album there. In fact, that's how I ended up there, was through Stephen Perkins and Perry. But and we're still there, and my son's band, you know, rehearses there as well. So it's kind of a staple or a center rehearsal universe down here. And, that's, where we kind of got everything going back in the day. Sorry, what was the question again? I'm like,
I already forgot. I'm just like,
I know,
wow,
new
this is
stories.
cool.
Yeah.
But it was just that how you're the shepherd of all the
Oh,
drummers as the other half as the steady half of the rhythm section.
Okay. So, I know where this is going. Okay, so the way we would prepare the songs was we'd go into this rehearsal room there and we would write. And we'd go there for 4 days in a week, and we'd come out with 4 songs each day. And then the next time, back then it was cassettes, we would listen to that cassette in the studio with the producer, and then we would learn what we had jammed on, and then we would play it live to tape and record it. And the goal in that was that the song would have the energy and the spontaneity in the drums and the rhythm section. So that would be our template, and that would be the tracks. But we always got the drums recorded in, say, 1 or 2 takes, just to keep the freshness of the drums. And that's how we did it back then. There were no click tracks usually. It was all just raw, in-your-face, aggressive rhythm section tracks. And drums were always the first step in that. And that's how we did it. And then, of course, I would, check on the bass and try to up what I did. But it was instead of sort of cultivating a song, the cultivation process happened with the drums as the first step, I guess you could say. And that's how we did it. It's just a different way of doing things,
So the song structure is really flexible within this band because it's played a couple times and then the drummer kind of can take some liberties with it as you go. Like, has it changed or evolved a little bit?
Well, it's hard to say because we've only, I don't know, in like the last 30 years, we maybe recorded 2 songs. So
has it evolved over the last 8 shows, or did you start out with one and then you locked it in?
We did record something with Jay recently, and it was a lot of fun being in the studio with Paul Norfield. Paul Norfield, by the way, who produced the last Infectious record. And I know he still works with Suicidal, but Paul Norfield was the engineer producer on Permanent Waves by Rush. He engineered Moving Pictures and Hemispheres and all those classic recordings. And him and Geddy Lee would become mad scientists in terms of the sound. And
I got my Primus Does Rush shirt on.
Yeah, so it's really been a joy to kind of reconnect with him and record.
What did you guys record?
We just came up with a song, reconnected with Adam Siegel, who was the original guitar player and my writing partner, and just he had a riff, he had a few. I had some crazy stuff, and we just put it together. And again, I don't know what's going to happen with. I don't know where we're sitting.
If it'll find a home where the rest of us
can
hear it.
It'll find a home at some point. But anyway, it was just kind of like we had the time to do it, and we went for it, and it was a lot of fun, and it was surreal being in a room after 30 years with someone like Adam, and just like, oh my God, dude, you're still here, So it's.
I feel like that's how a lot of conversations start these days. You're still here. We're still doing this.
Yeah. We're still making magic and making music and having fun. At the end of the day, every band is different. I'm going to go into a new zone with you.
Sure.
And music is a gift, and it's really, really special when you can take that gift and the magic still exists. So often, I always say this with Metallica, when people ask, sometimes they say, you guys are still creative, you're still writing great songs. But the truth of the matter is whether it's with Metallica or, other creative sort of situations, when you have the passion for new ideas and there's no shortage of riffs and bass lines, it's great to express that to your fans and be able to still present it. Because I know sometimes as we get older, musicians will lose sort of the connection to their creativity. And writing new songs and being able to record albums together on their own, without hiring outside writers, And one of the things with Metallica is, again, we're so excited about our ideas, and there's just a multitude of riffs, bass lines, and ideas to make songs. It's the same thing for me with Infectious Grooves. I mean, I find cassettes with tons of ideas from, God, 30 plus years ago, and I'm like, this is an incredible bass line, or this riff is super funky, or, and that's great when you have this treasure chest of magic in all these ideas from the past, or even something that might motivate something today. So just being able to go in and have some fun recently, and not be like, oh, this is for this or this for that. It's just fun to be able to have that outlet, and express yourself, through music, and celebrate music. That's what it's all about.
Fun side note, I was working at the Fillmore for the first shows that you did with Metallica.
Oh, really?
Do you remember those?
Oh, yeah. I remember.
Yeah, I did all the backstage for you. Not alone. We were a team. But yeah, we were back there with the dressing rooms.
So what I remember most about that in 2003, right, was not knowing what the set list was going to be, each night. It was like really sort of loose. And I don't know if that was on purpose, or we were so overwhelmed, or Lars was so overwhelmed he couldn't tell me exactly what we were going to play. So I was learning songs like Phantom Lord on the spot, and they hadn't played Phantom Lord in a very long time. So there was just like all this energy around me, and my head was sort of swimming with like, the pressure of the show, the pressure of being the new bass player, but also the pressure of having to put together a song, earlier in the afternoon of the day that we would be playing it.
Not a simple song either.
No, not, Metallica songs are challenging, but then, believe around that same time, we're playing like San Quentin. So there's just a lot of stuff going on all at once. And it was kind of like, welcome to your new existence, and you just got to kind of learn, adapt, and do your best. And that's how it was at that show at the Fillmore. Yeah.
You hit the ground running.
I did hit the ground running. And when I got caught up a couple of years later, I said, I am going to go out of my way to learn songs that we're not even playing, that aren't even on the radar. I'm going to learn Orion. I'm going to learn Dyer's Eve. It's just like, I just was like, I don't like being at the edge of my seat, having to learn songs day of or anything like that. So I kind of, I found a way to get caught up, and I still do that now with,
well, and I guess that was almost a premonition then, because now it's the No Repeat Weekend tour with Metallica, where you've got the completely separate set lists that have changes, right? Yeah. I mean, it's just a huge list of songs over this couple years that for 72 seasons.
Correct. Yes. It's, again, as Metallica, we keep ourselves on our toes, and we take a lot of pride in trying to keep a certain, how do you say, like a certain type of energy that really resonates with our fans, and they can have fun with it, and we can have fun with it as well. So nothing gets sort of jaded, or, it's fun. It also, for me, like, say the duet moment with Kirk, where he and I get up there and we're really on our own. That can be very scary, but it's also, again, challenging, because we're, kind of stripped down, and it's just he and I. And what are we going to do? Well, we're going to present and play this song that we just wrote 2 hours ago, this instrumental for this audience, in Montreal or whatever. And then in Europe, we would cover songs that were sort of maybe classics in that city, in that country. So we'd be like in Warsaw or something, or in Moscow, we're covering an artist who's a huge icon in that country, and we're covering that song, and I'm singing it in their language, and you know, that's the scariest thing ever, but that's what we do. We try and keep things interesting, and we kind of, in a crazy way, sometimes we just push it to the limit, and that's, I think, one of the great qualities and who we are as musicians, and you know what we do within Metallica.
That's the musical equivalent of skydiving.
It is. And it's, again, Kirk and I get up there, and I'm not going to lie, we're nervous. At that moment, we're really nervous. So, you know, it keeps us on our toes, and luckily, I don't know, maybe lucky or not so lucky, I don't know what you call it, but Kirk's pretty reckless. So he's willing to take some of the chances that I'm willing to take.
So, speaking of that, this weekend at the UC Theater, this Saturday at the UC Theater, you've got Bastardane opening up. So that's clearly through the Metallica connection, right? They've been doing the night in between with your son's band.
Yeah, but
on the Metallica tour.
You know, I'm a fan. I've seen Castor, you know, grow with his passion for his original music. I've seen him develop as a drummer over the years. I remember when he was probably 11 or whatever, and he was playing drums. I remember seeing the drum set up, and just to watch him get so damn good is so impressive to me, and watch that band grow. And the commitment is powerful. And I just, for me personally, I was like, man, these guys, if they would play this show with us in Berkeley, that'd be so cool, because I just think having this younger generation commit to what we all came up doing and to be passionate about it. I would never twist my kids' arms, you know, Ty's arm or Lula or anybody into playing music. You know, it's a decision, but it's got to be a decision that comes from the heart. And to see, you know, Type A Houston and Castor with Bastardane come up and doing this, and not be forced into it, to be really passionate about their original music, to me is the best thing ever. One of the coolest shows I remember was actually at the Chapel in San Francisco, which is the first and only time that all three bands played together: Otto, Type A Houston, and Bastardane. And that was really, really fun night for me. Yeah. But Bastardane is, you know, I mean, aside from the Metallica takeover weekends, they've been they've been doing their thing, you know, on their own. They've definitely made a name for themselves, and they're continuing that journey, you know, as well as Otto. Otto's writing new material, and they've got you know, they got some changes coming up in the band lineup, which I'm sure they'll announce it sometime soon. But everything is great with all the young bands within and sort of surrounding in the Metallica family, and they're doing it on their own, which is really cool.
Do you see the kids having kind of the wisdom of your years as young bands starting out? You know how a lot of bands will have like the same problems over and over with personality differences or schisms or egos or whatever. And these kids have kind of grown up watching all of that in the entire industry and around Metallica and seeing what everybody in that band has gone through. Do you see it playing out in their bands, or do you think they're going to maybe kind of just step in shit because when you're young and you're in a band, you got to step in shit?
Well, it's a little bit of both, right? I mean, they you know, they definitely, how do you say, they're taking the journey, and they're definitely experiencing things that we experienced, and hopefully learning from it. I believe that they are. When you're dealing with relationships, and you know, obviously sometimes when people are a little bit younger, they're still, their personalities are developing. You know, they have the talent and all this stuff is there, but they're still trying to figure stuff out, how to exist, how to tour, how to be on, you know, of course, being on the road is a challenge, how to live together, you know, how to be a family. And it takes time. And yeah, along the way, there's going to be changes. There's going to be hiccups. You know, it's not the most comfortable environment when you're in a van and you're touring around, you know, the United States. But usually, and this is important, you find the camaraderie to be a family and to have each other's back and to take each show as a source of challenge and try and win over that audience. And sometimes it's 10 people, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's 500 people. And that's just the way it is. And again, I got to commend these guys because it's not easy. And to allow yourself to put yourself in that situation of discomfort sometimes is a big deal. And they've been doing it now. This is like, they're going to be touring together. Bastardane and Otto are going to tour together again in August. And, you know, that'll be a whole new experience and a whole new territory of cities for them. And with that said, it's an extension of the previous two journeys that they've already taken together. One of them was a West Coast. The last one was all the US, from New York through Eastern Canada down into SoCal. And they're still hanging in there, and I'm excited about their new songs. I know Bastardane has a new album. Again, Otto working on new material, you know, every day. So more power to them, and we'll see how it all goes for them. It's really cool, very exciting. But again, going back to Bastardane and SF, it's going to be great. I mean, Castor was born and raised there, so for him, it's kind of a home away from home.
And you already expect a mixed age audience anyway, right? I mean,
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
It's usually that way, especially at that venue. The last show I was there for was Suicidal Tendencies. They had played 2 nights, sold out, and it was awesome. And what made it most awesome was that the age range of the fans was so great. I mean, I saw kids there that were like 10 years old, you know, getting crazy. And it was just one of the coolest shows I've seen in a long time. And it's exciting to see that music still resonates over all the sort of age range. You know, you got the elders, you got youth, you got everything in between. And that's what I think has been going great for Metallica too. It's just like, wow, you know, you look out in the audience and you see, you know, probably the grandparents and the parents, and then the, you know, the youth.
3-4 generations deep now.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you know, I start feeling really old, but
yeah, I know the feeling.
Yeah.
So this, as the guy who likes to make sure he's worked out the songs ahead of time, is there anything you're working out to pop into the set list for the Berkeley show?
We've been having a set that's been working really well. It's got a lot of different personalities. And I was just talking about that with somebody yesterday. I was saying, you know, it's like we haven't played this song and this song and this song, but these songs have been working so well. But I know if we played this song and this song and this song, it would kind of blow the roof off the place. So maybe we should do that. So we may surprise people with a couple jams that we haven't played yet, but we have rehearsed that people will recognize. One of them for sure. So I might propose that at rehearsal on Wednesday, because I figure, well, if this is the last one, let's take it to the limit if we can.
I would talk all day, but I have to be on the air. Is there anything you want me to ask you that I haven't asked you yet before the show this week?
No, I think we've done a great job and kind of informing people. And I just want to say I'm really excited to be back at the Berkeley Theater as a performer this time and not as a spectator. That was great, don't get me wrong, but to get up on that stage, because that is a cool venue. That just is the perfect place to see a show. And I sent a flyer to Alex Skolnick, because I know that he was raised in the area, and he goes, "Oh my God, that venue! I saw Rocky Horror Picture Show. Song remains the same." You know, he's like, going down this list.
I used to perform Rocky Horror Picture Show there in the 80s.
Really, yeah. He was talking about Star Wars. It's like Star Wars, and I got so much history there. I think he might live in New York now. I'm not sure, but he goes,
he's in Brooklyn now.
Yeah, he goes, if I was in town, I'd definitely be there. I'll let people know. And it just, it's exciting for me to be in that venue because I've never played there. So I've done I played the Warfield, I played the Stone, I played the Fillmore, it's like most of the venues in the Bay Area I've played, but I've never played this one. So I am excited about it. And I'm really, really excited to reconnect with the fans from the East Bay and the city and San Jose, wherever they're from, man. It just, come on out, enjoy. It's going to be a party. It really ends up being that. I guess it's the style of music or whatever, but people have a good time, and that's what it's going to be on Saturday night.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's good
Thank
to talk
you.
to you.
Good to talk to you.
Everybody in the family, I said hi.
I will, and we'll see you on Saturday.